this Bayern Munich team has the potential to go through the season without losing one football game.
Hi and welcome to the Fussball channel. I'm your host Marcus Fjørtoft, and as always joined by co-host Jan Fjørtoft. Speak a fair bit about Bayern's potential invincibility. But before we do so, give us a little recap on your weekend activities.
Well, I went to a heavyweight boxing championship called Chelsea against Liverpool. They just came out like two heavy boxers, and they just no midfield, no possession, no lack of risk. They just got at each other, as Liverpool do, done successful lately as well. Got in the last minute, they've got a goals. But now suddenly in 1 week, Crystal Palace losing in London. Then they go to Galatasaray in Istanbul, losing there. And now in the last minute, or injury time, they lost against Chelsea Football Club, which is, I mean, I'm not saying it's surprisingly, but it's surprisingly when you saw the start of the season. But they need to gel, they need to find a way, they need to find the role of Wirtz and Frimpong, talking about the Bundesliga, Ekitike, Alexander Isak, Kerkes. There are so many players they need to put into that game. I also say that they miss Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right back because a lot of the attacks of Liverpool started there. So that was heavy, so to say, to follow. After the game, I spoke to Reece James, of course, very happy with the Chelsea win. They had 2 Premier League losses as well. They beat Benfica, of course. Mourinho was back at Stamford Bridge. And then on Sunday, I went to Brentford, which is not in your area, Marcus, in your neighborhood. Small stadium, cozy atmosphere. Used to be a Danish place, especially when Thomas Frank was there. No, it was more a Norwegian. Alexander Ajer, of course, played from the beginning, which was good. And Erling Haaland, of course, did some wrestling with Van den Berg and made the winner. City very good in the first half. A bit struggling then afterwards, and I had the two managers, Ajer and Haaland was good, and then as it is pitch side, sometimes they come at the same time, so I went with Haaland instead of Keith Andrews, but still a good Erling Man of the match, and via play we gave him the trophy. And then with Pep talking about, when you get into a discussion with Pep about tactic things, and I kind of tried to land it all the time by, yeah, but you got a good, the table now is like this. And then he looked at me and said, people like you guys, you told us 2 weeks ago that Liverpool already won the Premier League. Fair enough. So I landed the interview just saying to Pep, talking about he's not have any losses lately. And I said, to be fair, Gaffer, in your whole career you haven't lost a lot of games, and so that was my weekend. Following German football, Marcus, of course, I hope that the Eintracht Frankfurt could do something to stop Bayern Munich, but when we see the stats of Eintracht Frankfurt lately conceding goals and the way Bayern Munich scoring goals, Diaz and Kane, I was not very optimistic, and unfortunately my optimism was good that I didn't spending on this game.
Yeah, and I think there was a crazy stat in which Eintracht have in their last few games been involved in close to 6 goals per game, so for and against. Yeah. And this is it's a young Eintracht Frankfurt team, a team that is expected to perform week in, week out, sometimes twice a week in the Champions League going into Bayern, and that will test players such as a Sean Özun or a Nathaniel Brown or a Collins, etc., where you're coming up against the best of the best and you're expected to perform at such a consistent level. And that's maybe revealing itself a bit in age and what have you. At the same time, there are pretty avoidable mistakes as well. I think as big of a fan as I am of Robin Koch, for instance, directly involved into the very early Luis Diaz goal as well. So it's been a tough run of games for Eintracht Frankfurt. 3-0, and you spoke with Erling Haaland, and it's almost hard to find someone in as good as form as he is. But Harry Kane, I mean, is hitting levels, and I think he said it himself as well, where he doesn't know if he's played any better or if he feels better than he does now. Extremely happy with this Bayern team and how they play. And all of that is so obvious to see for us when we look at Bayern play right now.
Yeah, and I think to your point about Eintracht Frankfurt, to make that finish, I agree with you. Koch, you need in a time when you have a very young team, you need the more experienced players to stand up and be the role models there. They miss Rasmus Christensen. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Maybe after the international break, he will be back. Obviously, when you see number of goals conceded, you also have a goalkeeper issue. Maybe you will go back to the more experienced one. Let's see what Dino Topmuller will do that. But well, you are the center half, Marcus. Whereas sometimes I felt Robin Koch was giving it away. It seemed too easy, and I'm not a defender. I know when people coming at you in that tempo didn't just happen in this game. But I think that what you're saying is they beat Galatasaray 5-1, then they lose against Union 3-4, then they go to Gladbach, winning 6-4 after being 6-0 up. Then they go to Atletico Madrid that had beaten Real Madrid 5-2, so you can concede, but they lost, was it 5-1? Bukart getting the goal, and then you have Bayern again. So I think that in this stage of the season, Eintracht is all about calmness, to be cool now, because things will change. You have to get used to the double belasting 2 games a week, and also that you're playing against better opposition. As for Bayern and Harry Kane, it looks like the sky is the limit. He's beating all kind of records. He is like a bit like Erling, and Erling said it after the game when he said, "Yeah, you and Harry Kane is doing all. Yeah, don't forget Kylie Mbappe. Don't forget him. He's doing okay as well, that lad." But Harry Kane, I mean, that shot he had there with the technique he's using. I mean, people will just have a look at that goal and think, yeah, it was just one of those goals. The technique he's using to get that outside kind of angle to it, it's unbelievable, because that the angle of the ball just take it away from the goalkeeper, but still manage to get it in the far corner. Harry Kane is also unbelievably respected in the team. So I said it last time, Marcus, and I say it again. This Bayern Munich team has the potential to go through the season without losing one football game. They could be invincible. We know the most famous invincible team is the Wenger team, the Arsenal team. But this team got a potential. You can't see where they're losing. I mean, yes, Dortmund are okay. Dortmund has looked after themselves. They play discipline. We see what they try to do. There are players, individual players, Adeyemi, and now they get Schlotterbeck back and all those kind of things. So, well, it's a classic of the end of the month. I mean, I think that for neutrals, that is the last hope.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget Leverkusen in this kind of veil of invincibility as well, because Bayern, with all its obvious history within German football and being the best of the best, it's that kind of one record that escapes
exactly
the fact that Leverkusen have that. And I think that would be a natural ambition for them. I think we have to mention Luis Diaz as well, because it weren't it for Harry Kane's 11th Bundesliga goal, which at this point is a record. The fact that Bayern have scored 25 league goals at this point in the season, another record. The fact that they have no Musiala, no Davies in the team. The fact that you have established such a strong offensive line as well as the defensive line, because we remember, take us back a couple of seasons to Kompany's defensive line, and we were critical in terms of how expansive they were. They've really tightened that up. But Luis Diaz has 5 goals and 4 assists in 6 games. And there was a lot of question mark, understandably so. It's a guy who turns 29 soon as well. But he has really delivered and slotted in really well alongside Kane, who is the playmaker in a way. Olise, who is a playmaker in his own sense. Gnabry, dynamic, finding back to old form. Obviously, Kimmich, Goretzka in this Eintracht game, but Pavlović as well. You have them meshing in so well, and then there's Diaz that comes with this energy and into this team that is, it seems so natural and so, such a good match. So it's worth, noting how good of a signing Luis Diaz has been so far this season.
Yeah, and there's a great balance in the team, and that's why it's easier to get into a team as well. I think for any winger to play with Harry Kane, that must be a dream, because sometimes he can take himself back, play them in when they go for the space. Diaz has also, you always use that contagious way of playing. You say take people on all the time. I won't say Luis Diaz is world class. I just see he's very good at what he is doing, and that is again praise to the teammates at Bayern, of course, but also the praise to Kompany and Bayern that they got this player, because I mean, it's not for us to say, it's too much or they won't get the money back. I mean, the main thing for a sport department, we have to be honest about that, is to get the players to make them better. And Luis Diaz is doing them better at this moment of time. And that partnership between him and Harry Kane is amazing. But as is any partnership that Harry Kane is a part of. I mean, it's not the right time to now use Van Dijk because they are struggling defensively in Liverpool now. But this has been over the last seasons by Liverpool. People who play with Van Dijk just get automatically better. I'm talking about Matip. I'm talking about Konate or Kwanzaa, whatever, who play with him. And Harry Kane makes the player around him better because he has that way of giving all for the team. And sometimes he can play in different positions on the team. So great to see, and I'm happy for Diaz and I'm happy for Bayern that deal and that recruitment have paid off.
Yes, and we have the Klassiker then at the end of the month. Bayern already establishing a rather healthy lead at the top of the table. We had another big game, top of the table clash between Dortmund and Leipzig. Both had 4 wins on the trot, playing up against each other, and very much the sense was that obviously Leipzig took the lead through Baumgartner in the 7th minute. Leipzig were the stronger team, and Dortmund, I mean, they haven't been sensational this season. You mentioned earlier they've been consistent, they've been disciplined, they've been hard to break down. Not particularly much of a reaction following falling behind pretty early on, but were able to equalize through Jan Cotto, his first Bundesliga goal. But very much the case of RB Leipzig being the stronger team. And what I find interesting with RB Leipzig, that obviously following last season, in which they didn't qualify for European football, they lost the likes of Xavi Simons and Šeško. But it seems like now they found themselves back to the RB Leipzig model, which is interesting because where do you in your club's development go? When you, consistently reach Champions League knockout stages, then you start looking into maybe a bit older players and maybe establishing a bit more of a stronghold, maybe go for a Bundesliga title. Didn't quite work out. And now you're seeing it being led by players in their low 20s and back to that kind of model, which I find interesting in terms of operating a club, but also seeing the results now because they look a lot better now than last season.
Yes, and Jurgen Klopp being the head of global soccer, whatever that means, but he's traveling around. Had a bad start where he would say that was before his time, but Pep Lijnders had to leave his job at the Red Bull Salzburg. He's now the assistant manager at Manchester City, so that worked out quite well. He had to fire his friend Marco Rose in Leipzig. So it was a bit eyebrows when Ole Werner came in because he was not like that kind of name, if you use that phrase. Started the season by getting hammered at Bayern. That can take out a lot of any club, but as you were saying, they had a fantastic run, and at the moment they seem to be the second best team in Germany. There is a competition between them and Leverkusen, of course. Kasper Hjulmand has got that club going again, but Dortmund will be there. I think that when Dortmund, with the way they are playing, the way they are so solid, I think they have a chance against Bayern because they need to stand up for Bayern. Leipzig is another way because, like you were saying, they are back to their young players, high energy, gegenpressing. I mean, that is the Red Bull way, starting with Ralf Rangnick, and I know Jurgen Klopp tried to take that back in any franchise they have around the world. And so sorry, German supporters, that I said that RB Leipzig is a franchise. It's a normal club, of course.
And just to mention some of the players that are part of this youthful attack of RB Leipzig, you obviously have Bakayoko, who came from PSV Eindhoven. He got the Rookie of the Month nominee. You have Romelu, who's the striker, who came from Turkey, from Göztepe. 2 goals, 3 involvements in 4 Bundesliga matches. Jan Diomande, the 18-year-old, came from Leganes. Konrad Harder, who hasn't quite established himself in the team because of Romelu, but still 20 years old, Dane. And then we have our fellow Norwegian, Antonio Nusa, as well. There's some really exciting profiles there. And yeah, I mean, in terms of determining Klopp's involvement, of course, the overall recruitment and being one of the best in class in terms of attracting the very best young talent, he will certainly play a role within that. And yeah, you have some players there with real high ceilings. And I think that's what makes this RB Leipzig team rather exciting. Going into the remaining games, I think I want to mention Gladbach, because Gladbach played 0-0 against Freiburg, but they're bottom of the league. They're on the 13 winless streak. Polanski, the interim coach, kept his job despite the absurd 6-4 loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. But he has gotten 2 points in 3 games. He's drawn Leverkusen. He's drawn Freiburg, which by all accounts were informed teams. But like I said, winless in 13. Sporting CEO Roland Wirkus, he resigned after the Eintracht Frankfurt game. So they don't really have anyone in power to make executive decisions. They have no one to say, Polanski, you have to stay or you have to go. So now they're in a search for a leader, either a sporting director or a sporting CEO, to take Gladbach forward. A Gladbach that has been a bit directionless since Max Eberl, who's now obviously at Bayern, since his departure, there hasn't been really anyone established in that place. And they've formulated the fact that they're looking for someone to guide Gladbach forward with the pressures that consists of, with the history that it comes with. But this is, we've seen it before that in German football, about big clubs slowly but surely disintegrating almost, and then finding themselves too big to be in the Zweite Bundesliga, but still there. And that should be a concern for Gladbach.
Absolutely, and if I can then take in another result, Hamburger Sportsverein winning 4-0 against Mainz. I mean, talking about the big clubs that needed something, and they got it now. Mainz is terrible, but still they managed to win that 4-0. And yes, Gladbach will have a look at the other big teams. And why do we call Gladbach a big team? It's for younger viewers, is back in the 70s, together with Bayern, they were the great team. They kind of swapped places to win the league. There was a great coach called Weisweiler. They had so many great players. Jupp Heynckes, later than a great manager, of course, a great striker. You had Bertie Vogts, who Scottish fans will know, but he won the European Championship as a German national coach back when it was in England in '96. So they have a lot of influential people. Rainer Bornhoff. They have a lot of people around. So this will be an attractive job, Marcus, with the likes of Jonas Bolt or Schmatke or Lutz Pfannenstiel, a friend of the podcast, stopped his job at St. Louis. He could be back in contention. So it's going to be interesting to see that, because Gladbach need that, because you need the management. So for them to have a clean sheet against Freiburg, that was like a win, because they had to stop that they were 6-0 down against Eintracht Frankfurt as well. So it was a terrible game, although they came a bit back. So let's see. Hopefully the Fohlen, the small horses, ponies or something in English, we need them to have them in the top league, in the Bundesliga.
We need to have Kleindienst back, the Germany number 9 or striker as well, who's out with a long-term injury. The same can be said about Wolfsburg, who have only one win of this season in the league. That was against Heidenheim. Struggles there as well, as you have Peter Christensen, who's leading the Wolfsburg project. Have a few Danes as well there, but brought in Paul Simonis, who was a pretty inexperienced coach, all things considered, came from Go Ahead Eagles. They have a pretty hefty budget as well. European ambitions, most certainly. We've seen them. They won the Bundesliga, and when they had Grafit and Dzeko and what have you. But another club that is becoming increasingly irrelevant, perhaps, or not being able to compete where they are expected to be, but albeit a much-needed win for Augsburg and Sandro Wagner, who had 4 losses in a row, were able to beat Wolfsburg 3-1. You mentioned the Hamburg result against Mainz. I'm
just saying 2 seconds, Marcus, about Wolfsburg before you go to that. I just want to say the challenge for Wolfsburg is that it's a bit grey club. It's grey in terms of what are they really? And Wolfsburg is more or less the company Kompany team of Volkswagen. So they won't have problem with sponsors on a short term, but on a long term, if they have to lay off jobs, and we had the project of Wolfsburg is so depending on Volkswagen. But I wasn't surprised on that. I'm not a big gambler, but I like to put in a tenner on a couple of results. So that was one of the games. I felt that Sandro Wagner and Augsburg would bounce back, and they did, and that was a very important win for them. And sorry for interrupting you. You were going to Hamburg.
I was going to Hamburg. I was saying that they were struggling to score this season, and they scored the four goals. Former Arsenal player Lokonga got his first goal as well. A big win for them. Another promoted team, Köln. I mean, Köln have started tremendously, and under Lukas Kwasniok, they look very, very strong. And now in sixth spot, they beat Hoffenheim away. Sadel Malnes solo goal sealed Köln's third win away to Hoffenheim, who showed themselves to be rather adequate in a kind of professional term. Stuttgart beat Heidenheim. El Canus, 3 goals in 6 games for him, matching his last year's total actually with Leicester. And they maintain a perfect home record. Kasper Hjulmann's side are unbeaten in 5. Leverkusen beat Union Berlin. New signings, Poku, Fofana, Tillman are settling in. It was a lot of turnaround ahead of this season. So they won against Union Berlin, and then Bremen beat St. Pauli. Mambungula, the 10 million euro signing from Juventus, scored after 2 minutes, and that sealed the win for them. As I'm looking on the remaining results, and I think we've gotten through them all.
Through them all, and it's quite interesting now when it's early in the season. I mean, there are some. At the end of the season, we will sit and discuss who's going down, who's playing who, and who will be the key results. And that is so funny to see now, because it's like the butterfly effect, because there are some results now are so important when we come to the end of the season. For example, Werder Bremen now beating St. Pauli. I mean, you can feel that is a game that at the end of the season will avoid the playoffs or something like that. So Werder Bremen take their 3 points, and that is so important for them. As for Köln, I mean, we're talking about passionate stadiums. I mean, it's an unbelievable stadium. When you have a look at the table now, they will be over the moon, Köln, where they are in the table now. So it's interesting to see that some of the teams now, when Frankfurt is a bit down on the table, and we see the same in England now with Bournemouth, Tottenham are back in the top flight, which is very, very good. The only thing, the big change between English football and German football is that Bayern again so dominant. We discussed that so many times, but it's not for Bayern to get weaker; it's for the other teams to get stronger. Yeah. So Bayern need to be praised for what they've done. Companies need to be praised that everything seems to be so relaxed now. And I said it last time, and I'll repeat it now. When I spoke to my colleague from Munich and the guys who work with Bayern, they're bored. I mean, they don't find anything. And again, then I guess maybe I said it last time, but that's why I love to work with Didi Hamann, because then Didi Hamann, after the game in Cyprus, he came up with, they're running too much. Because he saw the stats and he said, they're running too much. And he said, give me the stats from Real Madrid, who went to Kazakhstan. Yeah, you see, why should they run so much? They have to save energy. And I said to Didi, I mean, when that is the only thing we can complain about Bayern. But it was funny because I understand what he's saying, because he's saying, they have to be rest now for the end of the season, because then it's the main thing, which he is right. But still, at this time now, with, like you were saying, Musiala and Davies, key figures out, they're still so dominant. And 3-0 at Frankfurt. I mean, Frankfurt, fantastic atmosphere. They needed to bounce back, but there was never any doubt that Bayern, from, was it 14 seconds, they scored the first goal. So that is, of course, not a great start for them.
And just off that note, and just at the very end here, it's an interesting point, because the Club World Cup allowed players like a Ta, a Bishop to integrate into the team. And you had that prolonged preseason in a way, even though they had their break after that, which was hugely beneficial. What will be interesting is, of course, of those Club World Cup teams, what they will look like in March. Now, will Bayern win the Bundesliga? No doubt. But when you're going into the latter stage of the Champions League, Bayern's squad there were concerns about it being a bit thin. Obviously, we spoke about Musiala and Davies coming back, but nonetheless, matching the level with the output, so to speak, will be important. It will be vital. So let's see. But they do have their Christmas break as well, which
but yeah, which help. But Chelsea, world champion of the world. I mean, if you go to Stamford Bridge, there are signs everywhere, world champions, by the way, which I love. I think it's a bit overdoing, but I love that.
I know.
But still, they got all the injuries now, and the question is that because of the long Club World Cup? But we don't know. This is the first season. I think they had 4 of 6 center halves out before the game, and during the game they had another 2, if I'm not wrong of the numbers here. So yeah, now Mark is good. Then I can start today. Auf Wiedersehen.